Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. Well, little did I know that this would be something I was talking about here on the channel, but here we are. Massive spoiler warning right at the top for those of you who want no spoilers for Edge of Fate, and in particular, no spoilers for the Edge of Fate Collector's Edition. We're going to be looking into some of its contents today, and doing a little analysis. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's begin. There is a lot of cool stuff to break down in these pages, but I figured it would be best to go topic by topic in order to understand it all. So, in a very particular order, we're going to be talking about the following: the Department of External Observations, or DEO, and their shorthand cipher, the possible identity of Lodi, the JFK mystery, and why I think we don't have enough evidence to convict Lodi. You'll understand that in a moment. And the DEO's discovery of something that seems to be the Traveler. Also, because I don't have my own Collector's Edition lore books in just yet, I went ahead and used the pages that had been scanned onto a post from r/raid secrets. Thanks to IM4VT for posting all of these lore scans on the subreddit. I'll link their original thread down below in the description if you want to check it out for yourselves. Please go ahead and give them some upvotes. Starting out, with our first topic, we get the opportunity to focus on the origins of the documents found in the Collector's Edition. They all seem to revolve around a fictional department of the US government known as the Department of External Observations, or the DEO. The DEO's mission statement might be unclear at first, but luckily, we have the yellow page of symbols to help explain this. As Scauro explained in his content on the Collector's Edition, this is what's known as a shorthand cipher. It's a kind of cipher that is a little different from some others because it's dependent on the use of its symbols to translate into the phonetic sounds of a word instead of its letters. In other words, the cipher spells out how the word sounds instead of spelling it actually as it is spelt. Luckily for us, the community members from r/shorthand, including Beryl Pratt and W. Reed, were able to translate the entirety of the cipher on the yellow page, and it appears to be something akin to an informal mission statement about the purpose of the DEO. It reads as follows. Now, some of you have come here imagining that we lock up Bigfoot and disguise Greys at Paradise Ranch. We do not, and not only because we have no credible evidence of either. The work that we do here is both less exciting and far, far more important. Let me be very clear, there is non-human life in this universe, and when we make contact, we will meet that not with raised weapons but with open arms. Of course, should we be threatened, we will muster all our strength in self-defense, but we will never fire the first shot. This department was founded not to wage war or imprison that which we do not yet understand, but to welcome our galactic neighbors as friends we may learn from, allies we may rely on, and most importantly, fellow beings navigating this vast and beautiful universe. The cosmos can be dark and cold and lonely. We need not make it more so. So, with this cipher having been translated, we now understand the mission of the DEO a lot better. Their purpose is to reach out to extraterrestrial life and prepare for its arrival with the resources of the US federal government. At least I assume it's the US federal government. It's not actually stated, but I mean, come on, it's based out of Chicago and there's no single state government that would authorize a group like this. It's gotta be federal. With the shorthand cipher being translated, I think we can already start to see a few other things about this organization thanks to the Collector's Edition lore. For starters, we know that their director was a man called William Moffat, and their main offices were located in Chicago, Illinois. Within the documents, we also get a look at the office directory of the DEO, and we saw that there were no less than 26 different sub-offices, coded by alphabetical designations as well as numbers. Some of the more interesting ones include, but are not limited to, the Office of Signals Unknown, which appears to be tracking potential phenomenon out in the universe that indicates contact from or with extraterrestrials. The Office of Strange Matter, which appears to be some kind of experimental materials division. The Office of Pangeometry, which, if you deconstruct its name, perhaps means the Department of Geometry that's applied to all. I'm guessing this is a department that was interested in anything which reached into beings existing in dimensions beyond our own native 3 dimensions. The Office of Primes, which I'm not even going to pretend to understand, though perhaps is to do with the discovery of new phenomena that we can observe to be empirically true. The Office of Cosmosophy, which seems to be a department responsible for the study of the theory and understanding of the wider universe. And lastly, the Office of Dead Zone, which, yeah, I don't know why that's there and I don't understand what it's supposed to be, but I don't think it's related to the EDZ or European Dead Zone. Then again, who knows? So, we kind of know what the DEO is, and with that first part a little better understood, I want to focus on a major character at the heart of most of the documents. One Mr. Louis Yarrow, or perhaps Mr. Louis Yarrow, depending on your pronunciation of Louis. Also, Yarrow? Yarrow? Is that a Pathways Out of Darkness / Marathon reference? I think I see it. To cut to the chase, I think that here on these pages, we've found our Lodi. As you read through the Collector's Edition and see more of their own notes, you start to see that they have an absolute ton of notes about vivid dreams that they're experiencing on a regular basis. Dreams where they supposedly see the future and communicate with strange figures. There are a lot of theories going around that state that Lodi is going to be the next emissary of the Nine now that Orin has left her post. And with some of the stuff here, a lot of that is going to start to make a lot more sense. So before we jump to that conclusion, what do we know about Mr. Louis Yarrow? First of all, he appears to be a polyglot and a linguist. Quick note on that very fun word, polyglot, by the way. Polyglots are people who understand and use multiple languages. Linguists are a little bit different because they're actually involved in the study of languages in a more structural and scientific sense. Linguists are often polyglots, but not every polyglot is technically a linguist. I think it would be fair to say that Mr. Yarrow is both. We can tell that based on our first document in the packet, which has a letter from William Moffat addressed to Mr. Louis Yarrow, which states, "I enjoyed our conversation after your presentation at the Linguistics Society of America last year, and I believe your expertise in analyzing and integrating novel languages will be of great use to our work here at the department." This seemingly confirms that Mr. Louis Yarrow is indeed a linguist, given that he's got the studying part down. But that also seems to imply that him being a polyglot isn't technically out of the possibility. It'd be kind of weird if he wasn't at this point. After all, it literally is part of his job, it comes with the territory. Next, we have something really strange. It's a little note about how employees at the DEO are supposed to sort their parking. This might not relate to Mr. Louis Yarrow, but it potentially does. Hear me out on this one, I think it's important regardless. The whole thing seems like a complicated process even just from a few notes on the page, and it seems like a lot more of a restrictive process for new hires in particular, who have to contact their supervisors and request a letter. Scrawled underneath this, we see the words Green Line, Pulaski to Adams/Wabash. I hope I'm pronouncing that station right, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Roast me in the comments if you're from Chicago, sure, go ahead. The point being, this is a train line, the Green Line in Chicago. It seems like here, Mr. Yarrow, or whoever is writing this down, was being forced to take the train to work because of this complicated situation. Hence why he's got the route from the village of Pulaski, out in the countryside around Chicago, to the station of Adams and Wabash, which is located slap bang in the middle of the city of Chicago, just across from the center of the city and the Art Institute. And then you also have the fact that the train is a Green Line train, which matters because, well, it's the same type of elevated rail train cars, probably, that we've seen in all the trailers for Edge of Fate. It's a weird connection, but it's a really tangible one. Also, look back at the many moments within the trailers, and in particular this moment from the launch trailer, and you see this image from a sleepy village outside of what is presumably Chicago, and things become even more connected. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you what I think is the vista outside the village of Pulaski. Another potential connection to Mr. Louis Yarrow is the series of dreams that are noted down and scrawled on the lined paper. This appears to be a sort of dream journal being kept by someone. And again, it isn't confirmed that it's Louis Yarrow, but I mean, it seems at very least that these are the dreams of Lodi. Because, well, I mean, listen to some of these things. The features of these dreams include moments such as a point where they have the sensation of their left leg suddenly being turned into cadmium, a moment where they visit their office break room and see their whole family lying dead inside, a moment where they're surrounded by a council of strangers who spoke loudly in a language that they didn't understand, a moment where they're standing as one of 6 copies of themselves by a lake and they hear a voice that speaks to them and tells them that they're safe in every language that they know. And also, a moment where that same voice tells them not to be afraid and that they are supposed to take the call. This is a pretty wild series of dreams, which the writer of this dream journal also describes as being like in a world where everything looks like Rothko for a moment. So, if you take a look at everything that's put together, I feel like this does connect back to Lodi and the launch trailer of Edge of Fate, particularly thanks to that last mention of a point of interest. Something about telling the dreamer that they're supposed to take the call. This obviously mirrors the moment in the trailer where Lodi can be seen walking into a containment room where there is a phone handset that is connected to nothing and yet it is ringing. So yeah, it isn't confirmed, but it seems like it's all pointing to the idea that Lodi is connected to the DEO, and that he might have once been known as Mr. Louis Yarrow in Destiny's 1960s time period. Speaking of the 1960s, let's talk about JFK. There's no easy way to say this. This gets weird, and I think people in the community have run away with this on a tangent that really isn't correct. So, I'm just going to preface this by saying we will get to the ideas of who might have done this, but from the very top, I want to say I don't think it was Lodi. What am I talking about? Well, let's jump into it. There is a pair of document pages in the collector's edition that are absolutely fascinating, and they throw a little more fuel on the perpetual tire fire of conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination of President JFK of the United States. For those that don't know, yes, people exist outside the United States and we don't know all your history. It's a thing. Trust me, I'm in the UK. JFK, or Kennedy as he's often referred to, was the Democratic US president elected in 1960 over his Republican opponent, Richard Nixon. Yes, that Richard Nixon. The most notorious event of Kennedy's presidency is by far his assassination in his presidential motorcade as it was passing through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas on November 22, 1963. This is a topic that is utterly surrounded by conspiracy theories. Regardless to what you think about the entire situation, I am going to just simply sit here and say that I'm ignoring most of the noise and most of the conspiracy theories and just focusing on what I know from the Destiny timeline, because that's what we're actually talking about. In particular, the 2 document pages linked to this topic offer some wild possibilities for the fictional assassination of JFK. Both have document headers originating from the DEO, which, given their mission statement, immediately implies that there was something involved within the assassination that might have been extraterrestrial or maybe even extra-dimensional in nature. So yeah, we're already off to a really weird start. The first document discussed another important moment in time that is only being referred to as the incident. Well, the first half of it is redacted in black ink, so it's really the blank incident. But you get my drift, I'm just going to call it the incident from now on. Readings from something to do with some kind of disrupted stability are being measured in comparison to the readings from Dealey Plaza, and being judged as inconclusive. Apparently, there was some unique kind of weaponry and energy sources present at the location of the incident. The documentation makes notes about the fact that no conclusive link can currently be found between the evidence from the scene of Kennedy's assassination and these weapons and energy sources found at the location of the incident. It's weird to even bring this up in any fictional context without a clear signpost pointing somewhere else, So it makes me think that, yeah, whatever the incident was, and whatever the assassination was, the two of them were linked somehow. Things only get weirder when you look at the next page, where the report notes that someone whose name is redacted has testified on the nature of what appears to be an autopsy of the murdered president. The examination was being performed by someone within the DEO, and they stated that whilst there was clearly a disruption within the cranial tissue that isn't too surprising for someone who's been suffering a gunshot to the head, there was something weird about that disruption. Closer examinations revealed subtle patterns of the disruption within the brain tissue that might have come from the weapon's ammunition. What's even more curious is that instead of expelling the mass of the brain as one might expect, the tissue was instead being momentarily pulled into the projectile as it passed through the brain before being expelled outward. So, yeah, that is really weird. This weapon's ammunition probably had its own force of attraction, or perhaps gravity. There's the mention, of course, of the Cold War nemesis of the USA thanks to the mention of a single word, Moscow, implying that there was the possibility for the USSR to be amongst the culprits of the attack. And maybe that isn't surprising. I mean, think about it. This is 1963, the year in which Kennedy gets assassinated. And 1 year prior, 1962, what happens? Oh yeah, it's the time of Premier Khrushchev of the USSR, and Fidel Castro of Cuba, and... oh yeah, it's the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I mean, it's not surprising. Moscow was going to be on the list of potential suspects. There are, however, other mentions. Mentions of a single facility being put under continual lockdown, and then some notes on the documentation from that unnamed facility. This is all kept very vague because of the fact that there is just so much black ink on the page redacting things. However, what we do learn is that the documents recovered from this facility included blueprints for something that suggest that a group has succeeded in containing material comparable to the DEO's own Strange Matter. Keep in mind, Strange Matter was one of the departments that was listed on the DEO's directory. What Strange Matter is actually dealing with is unclear, but it appears to be some kind of materials science. Whether this is to do with quarks or whether it's to do with something that's larger isn't known. It does give me a few reminders though, and this is where I want to put out a theory. I want to remind everyone that this is not canon, this is not guaranteed, this is just an idea which I think is potentially a link. And I think it's a link to this small section of black ink here. Whilst I'm not willing to guess about the rest of the black ink and the redactions, I think this small section might actually be large enough to say the word Harker, as in the weapon foundry, Harker. The reason I'm guessing that is because Harker was known to have a Golden Age predecessor known as Harker Heavy Industries, which might, and I say might because there's no evidence of this, have been a company that grew out of the pre-Golden Age times of Earth, aka the times before the arrival of the Traveler, aka possibly the 1960s. The reason I'm guessing that is because there are reports of Harker vaults found out in the wilds that contain Golden Age weapons from their Golden Age predecessor, Harker Heavy Industries. They also worked alongside Clovis Bray and sourced materials from the K1 anomaly. But why does all this matter? Well, as it turns out, inside some of those vaults, there were certain iterations of Harker weapons and research that was being made into weapons with gravitic properties. Gravity weapons. And this gets even more interesting because Harker Heavy Industries is noted in the lore to have been researching these gravity-based weapons out of a field office in Chicago. Consider that the projectile that killed JFK here in Destiny's timeline is supposed to have created a moment of attraction while passing through the president's brain, and you're starting to see a connection here. The president might have been killed by a weapon that was created by Harker. Now, here's the thing. Harker Heavy Industries might have been involved in some really sketchy tech, but let's also remember that the gravity weapons being mentioned in the lore are Golden Age weapons. So they're easily half a century or more late to this particular event by the time they're being created. The other likely contender for all of this, though, is the Graviton Lance, a weapon that was also recovered from Chicago, is capable of shooting targets at long range, and shoots miniaturized singularities for ammo. If we are to believe that the assassin who killed JFK was wielding a Harker gravity weapon, or maybe just the Graviton Lance itself, There's quite a bit of a stretch there, but when you consider that time travel is a possibility within the world of Destiny, it opens up the field to a lot more possibilities. That being said, I think it's important to dispel one rumor right away because we don't have enough actual evidence of it, which is this. No, I don't think Lodi killed JFK. Man, that's a wild sentence to have to read and have to write. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is that I don't think we have conclusive evidence that Lodi is linked to this specific event, and even the report mentioning the incident makes no mention of Lodi or his suspected counterpart within the pre-Golden Age, Mr. Yarrow. So, sorry, no dice there just yet. It's not impossible that it happened, but for what it's worth, I really don't think that Lodi or Mr. Lewis Yarrow was behind it. Not to mention, Mr. Lewis Yarrow worked in Chicago, and JFK was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. I don't know if the Nines somehow run an express service from O'Hare International to Dallas-Fort Worth, but I find it all unlikely. That being said, I think that if they do, we can at least ask the narrative team how an airline like that might work. Hopefully there's a seating policy that means you're not sharing a seat next to Xur. So in short, no, I don't think Lodi shot the president. But given the involvement of the DEO, I think there is a decent chance that the Nine were somehow involved, and that there may be time travel shenanigans at play. So, to round out this truly, wild video, let's talk about what I think are some of the more interesting documents of the bunch. The last document is a page from the report of the DEO's Office of Signals Unknown. This document is a fascinating read because it shows notes and recordings of 4 anomalous signals that are being observed in the Office of Signals Unknown. They have notes of electromagnetic radiation from Gliese 1061. They have interesting notes about Proxima Centauri and a spike in radio signal intensity. They have other stuff talking about 61 Virginis, where there is a potential flicker of light indicating first contact with something. All of these have implications, including the possibility of us spying the Black Fleet and the Witness, wiping out a system, or maybe even the Elixni from Reese gathering in the Long Drift nearby. But I think for what it's worth, the most fascinating of the reports is report number 4. It just basically spells out, in all but the most certain of terms, that the Traveler is coming. Take a listen to this. 4. Unidentified celestial body XO-192. Urgent. XO-192 imaging received. Object is spherical, abnormally regular. Reception reports uptick in radio signal intensity in surrounding systems. Deciphering signals in vicinity first priority. Cosmosophy reports object is moving towards Sol system. Estimated arrival 50 to 60 years. So yeah, this is absolutely the Traveler, given that we know that it landed on Mars in a time somewhat close to the 2010s, and this message in the department is being sent in the 1960s. If we are to consider that this is also talking about the assassination of JFK, 1963, and if we're to take it that the first year of Destiny is the exact year when the Traveler landed, as I've heard so many times, then yeah, the Traveler landed in 2014, 51 years later. So that's kind of incredible. Not just because of the way that timing worked out, and not just because we knew about the Traveler in advance, but because the entire US government kept it a secret for the longest time. Point to Sticky MZ, who totally predicted all of this, by the way. He also shared his theory that the orb at the center of the DEO logo was meant to be the Traveler itself, but for what it's worth, I don't believe that. I personally think it's meant to represent Earth and the bridges of understanding that link its people, rather than an alien invader. Not to mention, the lines on the Traveler that do exist are circular, and not just random lines that crisscross it all over, and they have some symmetry to them as well. Beyond just that, if the DEO was trying to keep the Traveler a secret, why the hell would they put it on their logo? That makes no sense. So yeah, I don't think it's there on the logo, but they definitely knew it was coming. So, that brings us to the end of our video. This is all a bunch of really cool lore, and I'm sure we're going to dig into more of it as Edge of Fate progresses, but for now, this is where I'm going to end the video. If you enjoyed it and are looking forward to more of the wild lore of Edge of Fate, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like and leave your thoughts down below in the comments. And as a quick note, the massive recap video ahead of Edge of Fate, we're aiming to try and get that out on the 14th, so tomorrow. Wish us luck. And on the 15th, I'm going to be playing through Edge of Fate live on stream on both YouTube and Twitch. You'll be able to catch myself and Mr. Roffle Waffles and one of his raid team members running through the whole of the campaign on day 1. It's going to be a great time, we're going to have a ton of fun, and Milo has promised a certain number of oobs, I think. I don't know, I don't think he's promised, it's just going to happen. So yeah, we have some enjoyable content on the way. If you're looking forward to that, be sure to stick around and subscribe. But know that as per usual, your viewership, as always, has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.